Hi guys, so welcome back. In today's video I want to cover 5 cars that in my opinion have really stood the test of time design wise, that they are as good to look at today, even better to look at today because we appreciate them, than they were when they came out. These timeless cars have aged like fine wine. And the thing is, the reason why I came up with this video idea is because there are certain cars today that have really made some bad choices with design, in my opinion. Okay, I won't say what cars, but just these days, quite recently, there's been a lot of cars that have just gone, I've just gone, what? Why? Why do you do that? That's terrible. Of course, these cars have their list of, supporters and defenders, but in my opinion, those cars recently, there are some missteps, a lot of the cars these days. So I want to go to 5 cars that I can point to in the past that are older but not too exotic and not too expensive, that are no longer in production but deserve to be brought back because they're so timeless and they're just great. And the world is a little bit more dull without them. Let's just roll the intro and get back to it. The first one on the list is the Honda S2000. For 10 years, from 1999 to 2009, this car was the prettiest Honda in production, and I think the prettiest Honda ever made. I know NSX fans of the first gen NSX would really disagree on that, but I think this car has the best lines, the best shape, the best silhouette, and it's a pure sports car. It has a longitudinally mounted VTEC 2-liter engine that revved to like 9,000 RPM in the first gen. After the facelift, they reduced that to like 8,200 RPM, but yeah, it was just still cracking to drive, rear-wheel drive, manual. It was just great to look at too. And the thing is, the concept car was designed in 1996 by Daisuke Sawa, and I thought that this car was designed by, I don't know, it looks like something from Bertoni, from Ital Design, looks something that is out there, and it's not a Honda, but it is. It's too bad that they haven't really brought it back, because I think Honda could really make a splash by making a legit BRZ Toyota 86 competitor with this. Even if it's a convertible, maybe they'll make a coupe version, I don't know. But Honda is in the best place right now. I mean, like, they are so successful and so, their cars are everywhere. They're receiving international acclaim everywhere. It's time for them to delve into an S2000 replacement or a successor, successor. You get 242 PS, okay? And 220 Newton meters in 1999 in a Honda convertible sports car that is sexy and thrilling. And the reasons why it has held up so well is its ageless design, those pure lines, that pure silhouette. Nothing about it screams 2000s, 90s. No, it's just so clean and just perfect. Make a new one, Honda. Number 2 is the BMW E46 M3. This is the M3 that I grew up with, that I absorbed. Every cue that I would associate with BMW came from the E46 M3. And particularly, me rewatching the Tiff Nadell review on 5th year of the M3 CSL, and also the Top Gear Clarkson review of the M3 CSL was just, I would absorb it.
Well, I'm in for a real treat.
It is so compact, so taut. Everything about the BMW stance, the proportions, the styling, it's just perfect. And that 3.2 straight 6, no turbocharger, manual gearbox, just a tight little car, a tight little sports car, a tight little M car. These days you could argue that the 4 Series has, taken the baton a little bit further. It's really big. Just compare the M4 these days to the M3 before, and how much heavier the new car is, bigger and heavier. It's more powerful, but it's just not the same kind of pure sports car, and it's ugly. Of course, the biggest reason you get that, not the biggest reason you get that, but the best version of that was the CSL, the Coupe Sport Lightweight. Now that upped power, but that also took away a lot of things like sound deadening material. They put cardboard in place of that, so it was really lightweight. The engine, the S54 was upgraded a little bit, just uptuned to a little bit more power, 355 horsepower. But that car goes like stink. But the CSL came with a non-negotiable SMG gearbox and not the manual, which is kind of lame. The finest M3, what a thing, what an engine, what a shape, what a sports car. They should bring back that M3. That should be, well, I guess the new 2 Series or the M2 is kind of filling that void, but it's just not the same. All right, next car. The next car is really special to me. Number 3, Audi R8. Audi R8 is always gonna be, to some people, like the weird little brother or the forgotten brother to the Gallardo, the Huracan. And to me, that's the wrong way to go around it, because to me, the R8 is the car, and the Gallardo kind of spawned out of that. And to me, a Huracan, to me, that's no appeal, because it's just everybody that wants to flex, they have wealth, has a Huracan, has a Gallardo, they want a Lambo. But the Audi is just pure class. When it came out, this was the poster, the pin-up poster for me. This was the desktop wallpaper for me back in the days of CRT. I had that as my wallpaper. I couldn't really afford a LCD at that point. It was the wallpaper on my, slide out LG phone, my dumb phone before I got Blackberries and iPhones, whatever. This was the car. This was the car. Mid-engine, those lines, proportions was so simple. The newer versions of the R8 got a little bit more angular, a bit more angry, and just, robotic. I think that was, something was lost in translation over there. The original R8 with the V8, by the way, was just perfection. It was designed by Frank Lamberti, and actually it debuted in 03 as the Le Mans Quattro concept, which actually the concept version had a 5-liter twin turbo V10 from, I guess, the Gallardo. When it came out with the V8, to me the V8 is just smoother and classier and just more nice. It's not super fast, it's not trying to be a Ferrari killer. In fact, Audi was going after Porsche. Like, the days, right now we have the e-tron GT going after the Porsche Taycan. When back then you had the R8 going up against the Porsche 911, the various versions of that. It was quite a time. It was really, it sounded so great, it looked so great, it looked like it stepped out of the future. This review from Tiff Nadell for Fifth Gear for this car, I rewatched more than I did with the E46. It was just, wow. The gated manual. Most cars, at least in Malaysia, come with the R-Tronic, which is dog. But if you got the manual and lucky enough to drive one, it was gated. It was so sexy just to look at the shifter. And the thing is, it wasn't crazy expensive either. Like I said, this is going up against 911s when this car looked like it came out of the future. I mean, Iron Man drove one, which is not the reason why I like it, because this car just looks just so good. They should bring it back. It's a shame that Audi had discontinued the R8 indefinitely, because I think this is a nice juxtaposition to the outrageousness of the Lamborghini. This car is one that should be brought back. Just make it again, please. Next car. Ooh. Okay. Number 3 is the Alfa Romeo Brera. Now, the thing is, most of these cars, like the S2000 was preceded by a concept car that looked a lot like it. The R8 was preceded by the Le Mans concept, Quattro concept in 03 that looked a lot like it, that made a near complete transition from concept to production car without changing much. And the Brera is one of those cars that wowed everyone when it came out as a concept car, as the Brera concept, designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro of Ital Design. But then it was finished to make a production car. Alfa Romeo contacted Pininfarina to finish the design and try to translate that design into an actual production car. And actually, Pininfarina in Turin manufactured the car as well, not Alfa Romeo. These all Breras were rolled out of Pininfarina. Now, how many cars can say that without costing $1 billion? Okay, it's crazy. What a story. And despite it being kind of changed up from the concept car, just it looks fabulous. Just look at it. Open a new tab right now. Go look at that car and just tell me that I'm wrong. Admire that perfect Italian proportions and that sexy bum, that thick rear end. It's just pornography. Okay, but this car was flawed. Okay, because back then, at that time, for some reason, Alfa Romeo was owned by General Motors, and they had the idea to basically base all Alfas at that time with a front-wheel drive platform, to the smallest Alfa to the biggest Alfa. And so this, I think, was based on a 159 platform. And yeah, it was front drive. I think there was like an all-wheel drive option. It was never really good to drive, it never really engaging, never was an alpha behind the wheel. And it had a 2.2 NA 4-cylinder engine that was okay, it was fine, it's called JTS. And then you had, if you wanted the bigger engine, you would get the 3.2. But this isn't the 3.2 from the Busso, the legendary Busso engine, which actually ended production the year that the Brera came out, which is a shame. And so they used a 3.2 V6, which you think might be the Busso, but actually this is a GM engine that Alfa took over and tweaked and slotted into the Brera. So yeah, it's a beautiful car with a flawed technical ability, I guess. You know, like it's not very talented to drive, but you can enjoy it. It's a great tourer, but it's not going to be like an Alfa that would wow you and just impress you and blow your mind in the corners. This is why I think Alfa could really make a splash, just like Honda can, just like R8 can, just like Audi can, with a new Brera. Imagine, okay, like now that they have the Giulia with the Giorgio platform and the Stelvio as well, and those cars are great to drive. Imagine if they didn't make a Brera that's based on that platform. How good that would be, and how, you know, how everyone would just want one because it's so sexy. That design is ageless and timeless and just genius. Can be brought out this year or next year or whatever. It would never look old, never look out of place. It would look like an Alfa, and it would finally have the platform, the powertrain, and just the effervescence of driving that it deserves, finally. The last car that we have right here is number 5. I screwed it up. Number 5 is the Jaguar XK. To be specific, I'm talking about the second gen XK, okay? The X150 XK. The one that got sort of replaced by the F-Type, which is not really a replacement to me. In my eyes, it's not really, it can't ever be a replacement for the XK. This thing, from 06 to 2014, this 8-year run is when Jaguar produced this car. It's a classic British V8 supercharged brute 2+2 Grand Tourer. This is a legitimate competitor to the Aston Martin, I don't know, Vanquish, whatever it was at that time, the V12 version of the Aston Martin. And kind of awkward because at that time when this car came out, it was actually owned, Jaguar and Aston Martin both were owned by Ford, along with Volvo and I think Land Rover as well. Yeah, it was awkward because they had two cars competing in the exact same tier, you know, competing with each other. It was so drop dead gorgeous and looked so great and drove so well, and just it had a certain presence about it that I think it would have been better served as James Bond's car instead of the Aston Martin, which I know goes against tradition because Jaguar has always been the bad guy car and James Bond, the good guy, always drives the Aston Martin for some reason. But I think this car needs to come back. Right now, Jaguar isn't doing that well, better than they were in the 2000s, but definitely not well enough to be gambling on an XK, I know. But how great would that be? How great would that be if Jaguar took a few brave pills and just went for it? Guys, the F-Type was a great experiment, and you know, we want to compete with the 911 and that everyday supercar market. But as good as happy as we are with that, I think we should make a new XK. Everyone will just give them a round of standing ovation. Seriously, like it's such a great car to revive and a great name to revive, the XK name. Now this came out with a supercharged V8. Actually, it had a 4.2 V8 and then a 5-liter V8. You can have it with or without the supercharger. It didn't really have the most successful life. At the end of life, it came up with the I think it was the XK RS, which had, you know, just more aero and just a racier version of that car. And with that engine, the AJ V8, it was pumped up to 550 horsepower, which in today's money really isn't that much. But back then it was enough, and it sounded, this car is just about presence. And that the sound of the V8, the supercharged V8, against even a V12 Aston Martin, I think that Jaguar wins. Open a new tab again, go to YouTube and find a review of that car with that engine and tell me I'm wrong. Leave it down in the comments or something. But yeah, those are the cars that I think are timeless. They're not too old, but they've aged like fine wine. They've not aged a day, in my opinion. They could come out today and I would go, nice car, amazing, amazing work, guys. Whether or not they should be revived, I don't know. Would people be kind of scared? Like, you know, like the NSX, when they brought out the new NSX, everyone was kind of like, okay, I like the idea, but don't mess it up, please. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of pressure on Acura and Honda to actually come up with the new NSX. And, you know, it was never going to be as iconic as the first one, because if something's an icon, you don't really want to mess with it. And if these cars ever saw successors, like true successors, would it be ruining the icon that was the Ori car? I don't know. What I'm saying right now is that these cars are just so perfect the way they are, the way they're styled at least. Some of them are also legendary to drive and so great behind the wheel, but you know, maybe they can improve on that. I don't know. At least I know that the world would be a little bit more interesting with these cars back in production. All right, guys, I think that's about it I can cover. Thanks for watching. Any comments, just leave it down below. Give it a like and all that kind of good stuff. I'm gonna keep looking at these pictures. Bye-bye.